Lead Time is a podcast of the Unite Leadership Collective, hosted by Tim Allman and Jack Caliberg. Lead Time taps into biblical wisdom for practical solutions to today's burning issues. Each podcast confronts real-time struggles facing the local church in a post-Christian culture. Step into the action with the ULC at uniteleadership.org. This is Lead Time.
Happy day. Welcome to Lead Time. Tim Allman here with Jack Caliberg, and you are in for a treat today. We have the Reverend Dr. Travis Guse. I'm saying that right. Isn't that right, Travis?
Guse, yeah. Nobody ever gets it. That's okay.
Guse, nonetheless.
Guse with a G.
Guse with a G. And we are overwhelmingly grateful that you are with us today, brother. 6.5 years as a DCE, husband, father, pastor since 2002. And the last 6 years, he has served as a mission engagement facilitator for the Southeastern District of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. Thank you for your faithful service. And as I think about the Southeastern District, and Jack, I think you share the same respect, your district is well known for intentionality around lay leadership development and doing whatever it takes to multiply the gospel in and through local congregations. I don't know, Travis, if you've heard that, but being a Pacific Southwest District leader now for the last 10 years, we have learned a lot from you. Are you aware of your reputation there, Travis?
I'm kind of here, and I know our district president, or former district president, I should say, John Denninger, has been pretty well known, and I hear from other folks a lot of respect for him. So it's good to hear that we are kind of have that reputation and a leader in that here in the district and in the Synod. Yeah.
So we're doing a lot of talking and kind of leading into how does the church become even more local, and how do our districts and then circuits become all the more elevated. This is where the relationship happens, and really ecclesiastical supervision in the appropriate sense can happen. It's all based on relationship. So before we get into some of the questions we had outlined, as you look at the district in the LCMS, what should be some of the primary functions of one of our 35 districts, Travis?
Yeah, well, I think that for us, our perspective is it's really bottom up. We're here to serve. We're here to serve our pastors, our church workers, and lay people, leaders within congregations as they seek to fulfill the Great Commission that they've been called to. And our role is just to come along and how can we encourage, support, equip, empower, whatever it takes for them to fulfill their mission that God's calling them to.
Fantastic. So what are your primary objectives in the Southeastern District? What is it you're putting forward? We have a vision of 200 actually new starts here in the PSD in the next 10 years. What are some of your kind of big, audacious goals?
Yeah, we're working kind of new district president on board. So obviously we're in a time of transition. And but yet our new district president, Bill Harmon, he's really seeing that our vision moving forward is going to be very connected to John Denninger's vision for the last 10 years here with the district, which was connecting people with Jesus so that lives are transformed and the kingdom grows. And that is still our vision today, and we're just seeking the best ways that we can help empower God's people to be able to do that. It takes kind of three different areas that our new district president's looking at: renewal, well-being, and witness. And so for each of those, there's kind of different kinds of congregations that we're thinking about. Renewal, kind of think about embers that are kind of about to go out, and how can we try to breathe some new life into them, or help them, consider and legacy and go down that path. The well-being is more like you think of the body of Christ. You want to get ready to get in the game, and so we want to get congregations as fit and leaders as possible, so that they can live out their calling with greatest impact. And then the witness is we want to start new missions in whatever way, shape, or form that looks, from neighborhood gatherings all the way to kind of what's been considered more traditional church plants and everything in between. So that's kind of where it's not completely firmed up yet, but it looks like that's where we're going to be moving as the Southeastern District.
Travis, real quick, I'd love a follow-up question on that. What does it look like specifically on renewal? I'm very curious. If you've identified a partner congregation, you think, oh, this would be great for renewal, what would be the approach to to help facilitate that renewal?
And we're still a little bit into trying to figure that out right now. We've got some different processes of legacy conversations that we have or currently have had with churches. And it's basically just helping them understand where are they right now, and then what are their potential pathways forward. For some, it may be kind of entering into kind of a hospice care for them and helping them to die with grace, but then thinking about how their location, the resources that come from that ministry can bless a new mission, especially our interethnic. We have so many people from all over the world who are coming here to the Southeastern District. A big part of that are Ethiopians. And so we're really looking at how could we restart with these new missions that are starting with these partners. Some of it may be looking at how can they maybe be a 2-point parish and doing circuit riding. Others may be having conversations about how do we bring congregations together. We've had some of those discussions. So recently down in Hampton and Newport News, Virginia, we brought 2 congregations, Emmanuel and Resurrection, together and facilitated a conversation where the 2 became one congregation. The one sold their property and merged in with another. Yet over in Richmond, Virginia, we had a dying congregation with a strong. They merged together but kept 2 locations. So now they're a multi-site. So, there's really not kind of a one preconceived notion. It's looking at where the congregation is, what's God leading them to, what's the context, and what makes sense, especially if we can find partners for that.
Really good.
That's great. What percentage of your churches right now, how many churches are in your district?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we're about 280, if my numbers are correct. And we go all the way from South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, DC, and we've got a little sliver of Pennsylvania.
Very cool. So what percentage of churches are in that renewal phase right now?
I think that's something we're going to have to try to get a grip on. Probably that renewal, maybe a quarter might be there. If I were to take a guess, yeah.
Wonderful. So, man, being a pastor was and is a difficult thing, but the last 2.5 years was really, and I get kind of honestly sick of talking about this, but because I'm a future guy and kind of like, the Lord's at work even in and through struggle, but nonetheless, there is. It seems like every day, just about, I see another. Because I follow like Christian leaders and different blogs and such. I see a blog or a post about either a pastor tapping out, doing something, indiscriminate, or the rise of mental illness, not just in congregations, but among pastors who are leading many of them to tap out. How are you dealing with that? How are you being proactive and helping your pastors thrive in and through COVID?
Yeah. So we have really tried to take well-being very seriously here in the Southeastern District. And again, I think with our well-being emphasis, both for congregations, but church workers and pastors, it's going to be something really important moving forward. We're finding a lot of workers burned out, struggling with how to move forward for themselves and their congregations. One of the main things that we're really doing right now, and we're finding some great traction with, is we've started the SED Coaching Network that I've helped start. We've gathered coaches together. We are raising up coaches. And so currently we have 12, and we've got another 6 or 7 in the pipeline who are going to be joining at the end of the year. And when you consider the benefits of coaching towards well-being, it is almost on par with counseling. And I think a lot of it just comes from you need somebody to talk to. I think there are too many church workers who are trying to deal with this stuff alone. And for somebody to be able to come in and say, hey, how are you doing? Let's identify, hey, where's the hurt and pain? But let's also identify the hopes and the opportunities and where God's moving and what he can do in and through you and your ministry. And just trying to shift that mindset from kind of that negative mindset that I think a lot of us were in COVID, and switching it to see, hey, what are the open doors and the possibilities that even COVID may have provided for us?
Yeah. Do you have a lot of success having pastors say, hey, not only do I need help, but when help is offered, Travis, from you in the district, do the vast majority of pastors say, yeah, I'd love a coach? In my experience, a lot of them are not taking the invitation as readily as we in the Pacific Southwest District would love to see. What's your experience?
I think that for us, we have been really at work since I came on the district. So I came as an ICF certified life and executive coach, did my doctorate in coaching. So obviously I drank the Kool-Aid of coaching a long time ago. And we have been working on it for 6 years just to create the awareness of what is coaching, its benefits. And we're making it a greater and greater priority in the district. I think it's from that work. It's the raising up of coaches, the stories that are starting to be told now of the benefits of coaching. And a lot of it is also just the relational capital. So it's as, I'm out there loving and serving and connecting with people in my role, and I'm talking about coaching, but there's also that relationship of trust that I think there comes that point in which all of a sudden, I'd say, especially coming out of COVID, that we're suddenly having a big intake or uptick of individuals who are saying, you know what, I think I need a coach right now. So there's more openness, as well as congregations who are saying, we need visioning and strategic planning because the landscape's changed and we got to figure out a way to move forward. And so I would say that COVID was difficult, but I think it's created a lot more openness and willingness for people to say, you know what, I think I need somebody to partner with me and try to figure this out.
Travis, that sounds fantastic. What does your process look like to raise up people as effective coaches?
Yeah, so we have partnered with Coach Approach Ministries, Chad Hall, who was the head of my doctoral program. He's down in Hickory, North Carolina. They have started a coach training program, and we have partnered with them. So the coach training that we provide are ICF certified courses, and yet we're able to offer them because of the partnership we have with them at a fraction of a cost. So we have high quality coach training, very low price point for folks, which makes it a lot easier. Sometimes finances can be a barrier. And so what we have is kind of a 3-step process for having an SED certified coach. It's our CAM 501, which is the foundations of Christian coaching, the basic coaching skills. Either CAM 502, which is establishing a dynamic coaching relationship, or our CAM 503, coaching for change, transition, and transformation. And then the final step is they have to do 10 weeks of group mentor coaching. So kind of getting into groups, practicing with one another, and then some one-on-one work they do with me. And with that, we're able to certify them once they complete that as a certified coach. But there's also an ongoing continuing education component that we have as well. So they have to continue growing. And our encouragement is they don't have to become an ICF certified coach, but we're really working and providing a pathway for them to do that if they would like to.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Every organization that does a great job at leadership development, they put a very, very high value on making sure all of your leaders have a coach, a mentor, that you're coaching people, that you're being coached, right? It goes throughout the whole system. Yep. And it seems like you guys are taking leadership and doing that in your district. And I want to commend you for that. But I do want to say this. What would you say to somebody who's feeling maybe anxious or skeptical about the idea of taking on entering into a coaching relationship with somebody who's coaching them?
Yeah, I think there's still a misunderstanding of the term coach, because I think a lot of times we think of coach from the sports world, and it's that person who's going to yell at me or tell me what to do. They're the expert. That's the type of coaching, life, faith coaching, strategic coaching. That's not what we're talking about. We really are equal partners with you, and we honor very much that the individual that we're coaching is the expert of their life and situation. We're not here to tell them what to do or to be like us. What we are experts is a process. And I really kind of boil it down and say really being a coach is just simply being a creative think partner with you. You're thinking and praying about stuff all the time, but sometimes it's hard to have an objective perspective and to see all the options when you're going through it alone. A coach is just somebody who's able to say, okay, hey, let's sit down for a second. Let's just process through. I kind of equate it like we've got all these Christmas lights. When you go to hang up the Christmas lights on a Christmas tree, you pull out the box and they're all jumbled together. That's our minds a lot of times. There's just so many thoughts and feelings. What we do as coaches is let's take the Christmas lights, let's untangle them, let's get them all stretched out, and then let's figure out what's the best way to hang them up on the tree. And that's what we do as coaches. It's like, let's take all the things you're thinking and praying about, let's just lay it out, and now figure, what are you going to do with it? How are you going to do it? What encouragement and support do you need? Do you need a ladder? Do you need somebody to help you? Whatever it might be. And so through active listening, powerful questions, different tools that we bring, we're just able to help people think through the things in a little different way, a more objective perspective, to seek what God's purpose is for their life and ministry.
That's excellent.
Man, love your heart, Travis. It's so evident that you just want to see pastors, leaders, and churches thrive and the gospel go forth. You have such a humble heart. Humility is so necessary for pastors, one, asking for help from a coach, and then maybe even asking for help from one another, that mutual support of brothers kind of in the trenches together. And my doctoral work was in the traits and characteristics of pastors who collaborate in mission. And what we found was that pastors often don't, and there's a number of reasons why. And it could be the insecurity of the pastor. It could just be the system hasn't been set up to facilitate collaboration very intentionally. So I guess, given that, do any of your churches work together intentionally? If so, what does that kind of look and feel like?
Yeah, we're starting to do that. I think one of the most exciting opportunities that we see for that happening is in the greater Richmond, Virginia area. In that area, most of the churches there are part of Circuit 10 in our district. And so a number of them have formed something called C10. And so what they're looking at is how can we partner together to fulfill God's mission in the greater Richmond area? And so it's everything from big emphasis, especially through COVID, has been through their Mission U leadership development, lay leadership development, lay deacons, trying to raise up pastors and church workers, starting outside the box new missions, maybe shared resources. Maybe we come together and we get one person who's in charge of social media and developing a web presence, and then we share those resources, coming together to do service projects out in the community. And then the last one is just how do we put a public face to who we are? I think what a lot of people don't realize is that the Lutheran Church has been in Richmond even before the Civil War. And yet most people don't even know what a Lutheran is, especially in Baptist world and Methodist world out here. So just trying to raise the awareness as well. And so they've come together to try to accomplish these different objectives. And it's very exciting to see what's happening. COVID kind of threw a little bit of a curveball, but they're starting to really kind of ramp things up now beyond the Mission U leadership development component.
So is C10, is that kind of a circuit brand that's out that they kind of market themselves collectively to the community?
Yep, that is, they've got a website. That's how they communicate.
Wow.
And not every congregation in C10 is there, but they see themselves as, even if they're not part of C10 officially, the things that they're doing, they hope to bless and bring the resources that they've brought together to be able to bless the other congregations as well.
Wow, how long have they been doing that?
Probably, I think it was 2019 is when it kind of came together. Again, we had COVID that kind of threw a little bit of a curveball on that. But even through COVID, though, the Mission U, that's kind of been the first component that they led with. That has been really doing a lot of work. Very, very exciting.
Wow. So, Travis, that's a very unusual story, which we'd love to see more and more of happen. What do you think? There must have been something special that happened in that circuit that caused the leaders there to say, we're better together and we want to collaborate. What do you think? Are you familiar with what the genesis of that was?
Yeah, it's really kind of three key congregations, Trinity, Redeemer, and Grace in Chester. Really a big spearhead behind this has been Pastor Matt Bean from Redeemer Lutheran, but also strong lay leadership development. So it wasn't just the pastors who came together, but key congregational leaders who came together on this as well. And so it's not just a pastoral initiative, it's a lay leader initiative as well.
Wow. That's really
That
cool.
seems so like duh.
I
know. But it's so not. It just doesn't happen very, very often. And I mean, our circuit, the way the circuit from a forum to convocation is supposed to be organized, it's the guts are there for us just to dust off and kind of say, hey, we need more lay leaders at the table. Yep. We're going to do a lot of thinking and writing on that. And C10's story needs to be told to encourage other circuits to do the same.
Yeah, needs to be amplified.
Amen. Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about the role of circuit visitor, and I said in my thesis that it should be called the circuit leader in mission rather than just a visitor. So how do you train your circuit visitors right now? And is there any kind of especially with that story of C10, are you reimagining the role of a circuit visitor and how they're trained?
I would say we're not there yet. Again, our district president has been on for, I think, 9 weeks, so he's kind of drinking out of a fire hose right now. Totally. But basically what we do, or have done, I should say, in our district for the training for the circuit visitors has been, we bring them together for a gathering for a couple days twice a year. And we do some equipping, whether it's in reconciliation, we do equipping of, here's the responsibilities you have, or here's the call process. So we've been very intentional. Actually, I've had some individuals who have come from other districts and they're like, wow, we never got anything quite like this. So we're very intentional. I think
that's just for the visitors. They come together and do that.
That's just for the circuit visitors.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, and we really communicate. They are the district and the local level, and I think a lot of people don't realize that that's really kind of Synod-wide is what they're supposed to be. Is they're supposed to be the presence of the district in their locales. Again, because we're such a large district, between my role as facilitator and the other facilitators we have, the circuit visitors, we really try to get as much of our local presence and high touch as possible, because being as spread out as we are, it would feel very easy for us to feel like we're separated and the district isn't there.
Yeah. What if every single circuit visitor was really, really fantastic as a coach, as you're laying out, right? And they had that and they could bring that skill. So it's more than just, even you think about the word that we use, a visitor, it's like, okay, we got to visit, but to be coached, to be mentored, to be appropriately challenged in a high level of trust and experience that the person may bring.
And there's some talk about possibly in one of our future circuit visitor trainings of bringing coach skills to that. So we're definitely having some conversation around that.
Do you get in the trenches at all in circuit visitor selection?
No. That comes from the bottom up. So the circuits are involved. Now, with that said, our district president does tap some shoulders every once in a while and say, hey, I think you might be pretty good at this. And so, we are proactive, but yet at the same token, the way things are structured, it comes from the circuits.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything today needs to go bottom up for the local church to innovate and do whatever it takes to reach our community with the gospel while maintaining our wonderful theology. So there's a lot of people talking about the church worker shortage and different remedies. We've got an idea we're testing right now. I think some other folks are testing some different ideas to raise up more, vocational, full-time, bivocational leaders. What do you think should be done to remedy the church worker shortage in the LCMS?
Well, and this really comes, again, I think out of a lot of Matt Bean's thinking and what they started with C10, and we've taken some of that and said, okay, what can we do on a district level with this? So I know one of the things he talked a lot about is kind of like a developmental league like baseball. So we got AA and AAA. We need to have a pipeline for raising up leaders.
And
so we've had we need to have a bench. Absolutely. Yeah. And so we've had a strong tradition of lay leadership development, especially lay deacon training. But when I came on, it was connected to Concordia Bronxville. Unfortunately, Concordia Bronxville went away, so we reimagined and redesigned our lay deacon training program. Also, with some of the things that came down from Synod as far as restrictions for lay deacons, we kind of reimagined them. Instead of just thinking of them as word and sacrament assistants to the pastor, we thought more of word and service and really more in the role of evangelist. So raising up everyday missionaries. So we've partnered with Mission Training Center, which is now housed, again, Concordia Portland, my former school, unfortunately has gone away. So they're now connected to Concordia Irvine. But we have a 2-year process that they go through, really kind of being trained. First year is kind of theology and scripture, some basics of missional church and missional living. The second year, we get into some very practical skills. And so we really see the work that we're doing is really kind of along like St. Philip, who worked within the church, but he also was an everyday missionary with his encounter with the Ethiopian eunuch and sharing the gospel from town to town and even planting a church. And so we're raising up our workers for that. And they don't just go through the courses, but we also put them into a coaching huddle for 2 years. So a lot of our coaches we're raising up are working with our lay deacons. And we see those individuals not only as incredible assets to their churches and their communities, but also that some of those individuals may get a taste for pastoral ministry and say, you know what, I think we want to take the next step. And so then we've got the SMP program. We have been really pushing the SMP program hard. I go to congregations and I'm saying, here's the reality of the pastor shortage we have. Here's the reality of how few pastors are coming out of the seminaries. Who in your pew might be your next pastor? And so I'm putting that challenge when I go out to every congregation I visit, going through the call process, saying your next pastor might be in the pews. Why don't you consider the lay deacon program? Here's SMP. And we've gotten some individuals who have stepped up that they've come out to me afterwards and said, for years, God's been tapping my heart that maybe I should be a pastor. And sometimes it's just somebody to make that invitation and tap them and say, hey, have you thought and prayed about this? And they've said, yeah, I want to take that next step.
We've developed that's amazing. Praise God. We've developed a kind of hierarchy system of pastoral leadership in the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, and I think that's not biblical or confessional. What do you say to those who say SMP is kind of second rate to the residential, the normal MDiv? What do you say?
I went to seminary. I think Tim, you went to seminary as well. It's a good program.
Yep.
And there are individuals who need to know the languages really well, Greek and Hebrew. We got to have scholars out there. But when you consider what is the qualification of a pastor, the qualification was that the congregation said this guy is acceptable. That they've had some training, they've proved themselves. In their lifestyle and their heart and their character that they could do it. And to me, I don't think it's a second tier. These individuals are just as much pastors as anybody else. Unfortunately, there is an attitude that they're not out there. But I think that the more SMP pastors we have, or those who are going through other routes to become pastors, and it becomes more acceptable, I think that attitude, at least here in the Southeastern District, is really starting to change.
Good. So, Travis, one of the things that in our experience, we've done some work with the CMC program, and then we've got kind of a non-traditional program that we're working in-house, and we've done SMP as well. And actually, here's the ironic thing is that a lot of these people, these second career people that are going through these non-traditional paths, a lot of times have much stronger emotional EQ and are maybe way better equipped even to lead an organization than a lot of people that are going straight from college, going through the residency program and being dumped into a congregation to lead hundreds of people with no prior leadership skills.
I remember I went to seminary and it was I don't even remember what the guy's name, but it was the president of the class ahead to us. And I remember he stood up with the president of the of Concordia Seminary in St. Louis and said, I want to thank you for preparing me for everything I'll ever need to know in ministry. And a bunch of us second career guys who had been in ministry or been around the block, we were like, you have no clue.
Well, and the fact that he said that statement, right? It's got a proof right there.
Yeah. I value what I got out of seminary as far as I feel like I got a depth of theological training, but there are so many more skills that we need to be effective leaders out there. And so for me, I've had to kind of either beforehand or afterwards through continuing education, doctoral work, coach training, been adding that to myself, but that's been on me. I don't feel like the seminary provided any of that.
Mm-hmm. So I think the misnomer is that those of us who are interested in alternate routes to ordination rather than residential, that we downgrade intense, robust learning, highly, deeply confessional Lutheran teaching, that we want to short circuit, the system and all of that. And nothing could really be further from the truth, because I believe that a pastor, say he's 26, like I was, and I think maybe you were too, Travis. You're a little younger. You come out and you've never really had a leadership position, and like I think that pastor needs to remain under authority, in love for a longer period of time before they're moved into that, and then before they're moved into that kind of maybe general pastor, maybe there's an ongoing learning that takes place from the point of ordination on. And that a lot of the last point with this, I'd love to get your feedback on that, but that those of us who have been blessed to go through our robust residential system, could we have some sort of a seed that's planted in those young men's hearts or a second career guy who goes that, hey, you are receiving this amazing education to be an apostolic type, we don't use this language much, but to be an apostolic type leader who is going to, as part of their mission, discover, develop, and deploy future pastors, called and ordained servants of the word. I never remember hearing that when I was at the seminary. So talk a little bit more about any points that I brought up there.
Yeah, well, on the first you talked about, I know for my journey, I was serving as director of outreach in West Portal in San Francisco. My whole ministry was focused on especially the Asians, mostly Chinese in our school. We had a school, over 600 kids, mostly Asian, about 70%. Our congregation was having an incredible growth of those families who were coming into the school. Plus, there's the larger San Francisco community. And I know at the time, I just started having that itch to want to take that next step from being a DCE and director of outreach to being a pastor. And at the time I was looking, Irvine had their ethnic specific program back in the day. And I was trying to get into that. And they're like, but you're not ethnic. I go, yeah, but I'm working with Chinese every day. It's like, and I didn't want to leave my ministry. I felt like I had a great ministry. I was having a great impact. I built all these relationships, and they basically said, no, sorry, you can't come to the program. And so it was either Fort Wayne or St. Louis if I wanted to do that. And it was a big struggle trying to wrestle through that. I eventually did take that step and left. But why can't we have
at a sacrifice for where you'd been serving, right? So they had to deal with that sacrifice for you to be equipped, which is in a sense really not fair.
Yeah. I mean, couldn't I have stayed where I was, continuing to have the impact, but being developed with greater theological training, maybe under the supervision of a pastor, and instead of having to relocate. And so, I have a strong conviction that we need individuals from the field for the field.
Yeah.
Now, there's some great value in being able to move around and get calls elsewhere. But boy, if you come from a community and you've already got relationships, you're a trusted voice within a congregation or even the larger community out there, is like, what an incredible asset you are. Let's pour into you, develop you for that ministry context instead of always ripping people away. And whenever you go to a new location, it takes at least 2 to 3 years to build relationships, build trust, get to know a community and a congregation.
And it doesn't mean, just one note, Jack. Yep. It doesn't mean that leader, if we set it up this way, couldn't be called to another context.
Right. Yep. Yeah, exactly.
So Travis, a while back, I wrote an article about what the LCMS can learn from the U.S. Army. I'm a retired military veteran, 22 years. And kind of what I threw out there is to say, okay, so the Army needs to raise commissioned officers, right? So how do they do that? Well, they have the best officer training school in the world. It's called West Point. But here's the interesting thing. Only 20% of their officers go to West Point. 80% of them go to ROTC in a local university, wherever they happen to be stationed. If they're in the National Guard, if they're in a local Army post, they're going to ROTC in the local college, and they're staying and they're serving locally, and they're doing this on the job, and they're doing this on the side. And that's how they get all the training that they need to get their commission. And here's the other thing is, even though they have this great prestigious institution, they do not consider ROTC graduates to be second-rate officers. They're considered to be, Colin Powell was an ROTC graduate, right? So he can become the chief of staff if necessary, going through the leadership structure. He's not considered, and if anything, they may even elevate the fact that he was a private at some point rather than somebody that went right into a leadership role.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, there's value in that. And I think, I remember my first pastoral ministry class, I was basically told any experience that I had beforehand meant nothing. And it's like, it's just atrocious. It's like, how can you say that somebody's faith journey, somebody's experience, that means nothing?
Yeah.
Instead of valuing the journey that people have been on, the experiences they've had, and let's help you take those, develop, grow, and think about what it looks like to live that out in the next chapter that God's calling you to.
Yeah, I struggle because in your story, I hear the seeds of, and I don't think we're not a racist church body. We love all nations, etc. But there are some elitist kind of racist undertones that are just kind of weird sociologically, and I just don't. And we obviously are one of the most, if not the most, Anglo, white congregations or church bodies in the nation, if not the world. So it's like, why wouldn't we want to? You got to work with who you have. In your story, I would have been super stoked. Like, Travis, you've got an inroads with this cross-cultural community. Travis, you need to be about raising up. We need to get Travis ordained so that he can raise up more indigenous leaders for this people group.
Yeah.
Like, what? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. It's interesting. I came to faith out of Mormonism. That's a whole nother story as part of my journey. But when the Mormon church is more diverse than the LCMS, there's something going on there.
Wow. So, what is we can go dark quick. Let's keep it light. Cast vision. What is the LCMS? What's the LCMS look like in 20 years?
Oh boy. I have thought and prayed about that a lot. I think we're seeing a lot of our institutions struggling that were built for a different time, different age, different size membership that we have. I mean, we're seeing Concordias, and each of their stories have been different, but 3 Concordias that have closed now. I know camp ministries that are struggling, a lot of our infrastructure. And it's not just the meat anymore. I think we're starting to kind of consume ourselves of the resources we have just to stay alive. And for me, as far as a church body, will there always be an LCMS? Perhaps. But also earthly expressions of God's church are not always promised to continue. Even local congregations, all the churches that Paul planted back in the day, none of them exist any longer. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean God's church, the Church of Jesus, doesn't continue, and lives are transformed and the kingdom grows. I think if I were kind of thinking down the line, 20 years from now, I'm not sure if the LCMS is going to be around. But wow. I do have an image, I think from Isaiah, I think it's Isaiah 11, the stump of Jesse. Mm-hmm. Out of that stump that was cut off, that this new growth came. And we know that is the coming of Jesus. But I also think that becomes a metaphor of even when things look hopeless, that something new can happen, new growth can happen. New expressions of God's moving can happen. And I think that whatever is the case, I think something is going to come out of it. Something good, God's moving, because God's a God of the impossible, and he can do immeasurably more than we ever can ask or imagine. And I think there's hope for the future, and that's whether the LCMS is around or not.
Amen.
Travis, so let's dive a little bit deeper into your diagnosis there. So we like to kind of encourage people to think through the lens of culture, structure, and system. What would be your diagnosis kind of through those 3 lenses of synodically, right? Where would you see that the greatest amount of change would need to happen?
I think culture is one, but that's tough. I mean, I go the local expression of the LCMS, the local congregation. There's a lot of churches that, I know we've been coming in and doing a lot of work in trying to get them to get that mission heart, but it's almost like DNA resequencing. Mm-hmm. And I just, doing genetics like that is really tough on a congregation because culture is established. Culture is hard to change. And I think in a lot of ways, there are some who can make the move, But I think of what Jesus talked about wineskins. You don't put new wine into an old wineskin, because either you're going to ruin the old wineskin or you're going to ruin the new wine. And let's face it, again, there are a lot of churches that were for a different time and age, and they're beautiful, and God loves them and loves the people within them. But I think it's going to take new wineskins for the new wine of what God's doing. And I think it's going to take people who are missional and adventurous and entrepreneurial, who are going to go and start new things. With that, new processes, new systems, as you were talking about. But it has to start, I think, with a total different genesis of understanding who are we as the church, what are we called to do, and what are we supposed to be about? Is it just simply to gather, or are we God's people, this missional movement that God calls us to? So, and you think back to Luther. I mean, that was not an institutional thing that happened.
No.
It was a missional movement of the gospel that happened. And we took this incredible movement and we institutionalized it. It's just natural. It happens over time, but you need those fresh expressions, those new things that happen from time to time. And I think it's going to take that. Some will be able to make the journey and others won't.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Luther's movement would be, first and foremost, put the gospel well above any type of institution, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Now, he wasn't afraid of using, things like the liturgy to teach and all that, but it was a means to an end for the sake of the gospel.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What wasn't an end when you make your institutions, your structures, an end unto themselves. You are in the power preservation game, and that's not. That stifles the work of advancing the gospel, the work of the Holy Spirit, the work within the body, the unique gifts and expressions within the body of Christ. And some may make a claim today that a lot of the conversations we're having, we're missing we're missing the heart of Jesus, the humility of Christ, and we're worshiping the created structure maybe rather than the Creator, who gives us ample freedom in the gospel to do whatever it takes to reach as many as possible with the gospel. And your heart of coaching, kind of last little conversation piece here, your heart of coaching is what I think more circuit visitors and district presidents to synodical presidents need, this kind of guide by the side, giving you a fresh lens. And your doctoral work was all in the realm of coaching. So go deeper in coaching and then in how people can connect with you, Travis. This has been great.
Yeah. For me, what I did in my doctoral work that I really loved was taking, I think there's a question of, okay, so here's coaching that comes from the outside secular world and business and such. How do we understand its role within the church? Mm-hmm. And for me, very early on in my journey, I went through a time in which I was out of ministry for about 1.5 years. And it was that time that I discovered two things. It was coaching, and very quickly saw what an incredible personalized and practical way to help empower people to live out God's calling in their life. And the other was Luther's teaching on vocation, because I was struggling with who am I, what's my call, what's my vocation. And those things came together and has been a part. And so in my doctoral work, I really see coaching fitting within Luther's teaching on vocation. We have a call in Christ, both our ultimate calling of who we are as a child of God by grace through faith. We have a unique calling of God's gifting, workmanship, and design. And in order for people to step out boldly for the sake of the kingdom and blessing others, they got to know the gifts that God's given to them. And then they have to be able to take care of themselves, kind of that heart, soul, body, mind, body, kind of holistic discipleship and well-being, so they can show up at their best in their calling. And now what's it look like to live that out in the different stations of life, from church, family, work, and society? And so it's within that. I think that vocation, Luther's teaching, gives that theological and that biblical framework to understand the value of coaching. And again, coaching isn't discipleship, but boy, it is a powerful and practical tool to work with people and groups of people and teams in very real ways that not only deepen that awareness of who they are in Christ and how they've been gifted, but empower them to live that out, to envision what that looks like with creativity, figure out the best strategy, move forward, where to identify resources and support they need to step out in faith and with confidence that God's with them in that.
Travis, you're the man, dude.
Excellent.
This has been spectacular. How can people connect with you?
There's probably two different ways. One would be you could reach out through my district email, tguse, that's tguse, at se.lcms.org. Or if you want to reach out through my coaching email, that's begintothrive@gmail.com. So begin, T-O, the word thrive, @gmail.com.
And you have a podcast that comes out every so often, right?
Yeah. We've got the Call to Be podcast. It's bi-weekly. We have once a month, we do kind of conversations and exploration around Luther's teaching of vocation and living that out practically. Then once a month, we have what's called Everyday Believers, where we have conversations with everyday believers doing extraordinary things in the kingdom. So you can find us on YouTube, and we also are on all the streaming platforms as well.
Beautiful, Travis.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being with us today. You blessed us immensely, and can't wait to see what the Lord continues to do in your work, in your district, and really telling that story, that C10 story of churches working together to multiply disciples and start new ministry. We need more of that. Thank you for joining us, listener, today on Lead Time. Tim Allman here with Jack Kalberg. Every single week, we are having wonderful conversations, either Jack and I or with wonderful leaders like Travis. And join us again next week. We'll see you next time on Lead Time. Peace.
You've been listening to Lead Time, a podcast of the Unite Leadership Collective. The ULC consults and brings together cohorts of congregations to build the culture, systems, and structures of intentional discipleship multiplication. To go deeper with us, create a free login on uniteleadership.org for access to exclusive materials and resources. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for next week's episode.